It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and today's show is, well, it's jam-packed from start to finish, so we're going to be quick here. On today's show, you are, of course, going to hear that segment from Agritechnica. Shaun Haney will join us, Tobin. We're also going to bring in the CLAAS Connect discussion, which is super cool. Loving to see all of the cool ways that we can have equipment talk to each other, as well as do some management from the office at times, which is cool. We've got a product spotlight with Farming Smarter, and we're going to talk about the Global Agriculture Conference that they're hosting December 13th. And then we've also got the Farming Forward debut of this video series. So that is a brand new video series. I'll explain more at the end of the show about what this series is and what you can expect. But the debut video is with Steve Kenyon of Greener Pastures Ranching out of Alberta, and he's going to join us to talk about advanced grazing. But first, I do have to keep Shaun happy. This is his show. It's a regular thing on Wednesdays. We talk markets. And so I stayed true to what Wednesday should be for at least one segment. And so joining me on the show just after this break, in fact, we're going to hear from Chuck Penner with LeftField Commodity Research. We're going to go over the pea market, the yellow and green pea market. He does mention very briefly for any of you who won the lottery and grew maple peas. There's some talk there, but it isn't just about pulses. I want you to know Chuck's got some great insight into how things have shifted as far as who are the suppliers of different commodities. So some discussion on Australia, on Russia, and how some of the crop types have shifted since 2021 and onward. And then, of course, very important, we talk about India. And that was one question I absolutely wanted to talk to him about because Chuck and his company very much specialize in the pulse side of markets and has some great insight there on what impact our diplomatic relationship with India that is rather in tatters right now, what impact that might have on the Canadian crops. All right. Without further ado, of course, as always, follow us on social media at RealAgriculture or send us your feedback, 1-855-776-6147 if you've got any. Let's take a quick break and I'll be back with Chuck Penner right after this.
Give your soybeans an obvious advantage with Lalfix Pro Yield Liquid Soybean from Lalwin Plant Care. Its exclusive formulation amplifies nitrogen fixation. That means a greener, higher-yielding soybean crop and enhanced ROI. The single bladder means there's no mixing, and the available collapsible cube simplifies shipping. It's the inoculant with a difference you can see. Contact your Lalman sales representative today.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
There's power, and then there's superpower. Advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed from New Farm. Take control, eliminate weed competition, and start clean in spring. Manage weeds early in canola, cereals, and pulses. Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO. Convenient formulations and multiple modes of action. Add more power to glyphosate, more benefits to your burn down. Go to newfarm.ca/burndown.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Blackhawk EVO from New Farm. Blackhawk EVO is the next evolution in pre-seed burndown herbicides. Powered by Duplasan, Blackhawk EVO delivers fast, flexible, and complete control of early germinating and winter annual broadleaf weeds. All right, it is time now, as promised, to go to Mr. Chuck Penner. He is with LeftField Commodity Research, and we're going to talk about the pea market. If you checked out the Pulse School last week, we covered the lentil market, which is pretty interesting. And the pea market is kind of mirroring that, in that we have the difference between yellow and green peas, and which one really is showing some strength, and the other which maybe not as much. Then, of course, stick around. No discussion on the pulse markets is ever going to be complete without a discussion on India. So interested to hear Chuck's thoughts on that as well. So here we go. Here's Chuck Penner with LeftField Commodity Research on the pea markets.
What is different, again, if I dial back to 21-22 when we had that drought, what we had then was we had extremely strong demand from China. There had been huge amounts of peas already booked for the export market before the 21 drought hit. So then it was a huge scramble to try and find those peas. And so that's what drove our yellow pea prices in particular up to record levels. This year, there are a couple of differences. One is that the Chinese demand, they're not buying peas anymore for feed. It's just too expensive for feed. And we have Russian peas now entering the country. And so we really had almost no competition before in the Chinese market, and nobody of any significance anyway. And so it's a situation now where China has options. Now, lots of questions about the quality and the whatever of the Russian crop. But if I would go back to my early days in the grain business, I remember when there was talk about, this was, okay, just so you know the historical context. This was around the time when the Soviet Union had broken up. So that long ago, I know you were just in diapers then still, Lyndsey, but,
Probably.
Yeah. Anywho, there was talk about, well, Russia is going to become a major exporter again, which they had been in the long distant past. But Russia will become an exporter again, and people say, "Oh no, that's not going to happen. They can't produce that much." And then lo and behold, they started to export. Well, no, it's just going to be this garbage feed wheat and blah blah blah. And well, geez, look what's happened now with Russia as the largest exporter in the world of milling wheat, of soft milling wheat. And so they're certainly not going to do that with peas. No, they'll never say never. But to just kind of disregard them as a market factor is dangerous or risky or whatever you want to call it. So we have that situation now where in the last few months, it used to be Canada would have 95% of the Chinese market. The last few months, it's been closer to 50%. So we can't hold China at ransom anymore when it comes to peas, is because they do have other options. So that's changed as well too. So if we want to talk about how yellow pea prices have behaved, they've really kind of slowly risen, and I think there's probably a little more strength ahead, and we can talk about that later. So they've gradually risen, but the shorter Canadian crop really had nowhere near the impact it did in 21.
Right.
And it's just a quiet market that is kind of being capped by these what Russian farmers are willing to sell for. So yeah, we have a smaller crop, although it's probably StatsCan's probably going to bump up their production number in December. But if you look at green peas, that market has, again, it's like green lentils. It's really taken off. And so, $16 or $17 a bushel now is pretty widespread bids out there.
Yep.
And it's partly because we had a lot less acres put in this spring, but then also these lower yields. And so green pea supplies, and again, it's almost a clone of the green lentil market in that it's only Canada and the US that grow green peas to any and export green peas to any degree. And so, again, there won't be any fresh supplies coming from anywhere until next fall. And the buyers of green peas are pretty solid, steady buyers that take green peas almost, well, not regardless of price. And then if you happen to be you really won the lottery if you grew maple peas this year, because they were up at $25 a bushel and higher. Again, low acres, lower yields, and then this extremely inelastic demand. And so those ones are looking just great. Is it possible?
Sorry,
go ahead.
who are our biggest buyers of green peas?
Well, China is still a major buyer,
one.
but
Yep.
those are for very different markets. The yellow peas are bought for fractionation into starch, protein, fiber. So that's what they're using yellow peas. The green peas are more for food products. And so it's again, even within China, it's a very different market for green peas. But we also export a fair number to some to Europe, South America. It's a little more. It's not as concentrated on China either, or dependent on China either.
All right. We cannot have a discussion on pulses and pulse markets without talking India. This is one of those ones that not that long ago there was quite a bit of diplomatic hoopla. We were close to, we thought, maybe the beginnings of a pre-trade deal. Did I put enough qualifiers on that? So this is, of course, an incredibly important market for Canadian pulses. Where do we sit with India now?
Well, it's quite interesting. The hoopla, as you called it, was kind of interesting. There were a lot of nervous people, and right around that time, I was at the Canadian Pulse and Special Crops Conference, and so there were a lot of international people there as well too. So people from India, and they would characterize it as that was really unfortunate that it had to be. That it was handled the way that it was, and I would agree with them. I don't. Anyway, I don't want to get too political because that just gets me in trouble.
Right.
But it could have or should have been handled differently. At the time, though, I wasn't too worried that it was going to have an impact on pulse trade. Largely because India has been importing lots of pulses. Aside from peas, and not chickpeas either. So they've been importing lots of lentils. And really have needed large supplies. So they really couldn't afford to cut off Canada as a supplier, even though they had possibility or they had supplies from Australia as well. They really couldn't cut off Canada, and partly because food prices in India have been rising rapidly. Pulse prices have been rising rapidly. So India has an election coming up this next spring, a general election. And the government there, it's in their best interest to keep consumers happy. And we know how disgruntled consumers are these days in almost every country, and India is always that times 10 type of a thing, and for good reason, because I mean here we spend 10-15% of our income on food. There it's 20, 30, 40%, so it's a much bigger deal. So it's in their interest to keep pulses flowing into the country, and so that's I wasn't too worried about that. The question now is they're just planting their winter pulse crops at that stage right now, and it's been a very dry October, and so there's already concern about their pea and lentil and chickpea crops coming up into this next year. So if they're already buying at a very strong pace and there's a problem with this upcoming crop, well then that makes things even more exciting, and to the point where, I mean, we haven't exported, or India hasn't imported peas from anywhere for years. And pea prices there now are at the point where you wonder whether they might open their doors to pea imports, which that's the wild card. We talked about the yellow pea market looking kind of mediocre and so on. That's the one wild card that could shake things up there, and I would still, I don't even know if I'd put 50% odds on it, but it's a possibility that you don't want to completely. So when we talk about, if I circle around to the risk management and the marketing part of the picture of this year's crop, I don't know that you'd want to be sold, but you don't want to be too heavily sold for this year. when we look forward to next year, it could certainly change things. There aren't any new crop bids out for peas yet. There might be some for greens in the next little while because buyers want to encourage production of that. But for yellows, I'd be surprised to see any bids for a while, unless that situation in India changes. And then it could make things a little bit more interesting. But yeah, essentially buyers are already putting out bids for green lentils, let's say, because they're trying to encourage acres. I think there's a bit of a, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word, but a bit of a cloud hanging over pulse acreage because of the Aphanomyces.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
well,
you're getting
close.
pretty close. Yeah.
That issue. So that's hanging over the market. So I don't know that we're going to see a booming pulse production for next year, even if the price signals are appropriate. And then of course it'll depend on what's happening with other crops too. So canola bids and wheat bids.
Well, yes, if they're all rosy, it sometimes can be difficult for those pulse acres on the fringes at least to buy in. Quickly on the winter crop going in for India, when is that typically harvested? When do we know when it's sort of hitting the market?
It will start hitting the market where it's typically harvested late February into maybe early April or beginning, but February, March is kind of the normal time frame. But we'll already have a bit of a picture in January of prospects, and based on how the weather has been and so on. So that's kind of the, even the second half of December and then into January, that's kind of when you already see whether there's yield potential there or not. Kind of like, early July here is you kind of already get a picture of what the yield prospects are.
Right. It gives us a better, or just like, with us, we have an idea of what establishment look like, what spring weather look like, and what the yield potential at least could be. Okay. This is a lot, Chuck. We covered a lot of ground. I'm very proud of us. So this is,
let me blather on for long enough.
It's okay.
You'll get
we'll get all sorts of information from you. So I do appreciate it. And we've got some things to watch for the next couple months for sure. And the way I take this then, certainly January, February is going to be a very interesting time to have some of these discussions yet again. And that of course coincides with when Saskatchewan farmers are going to be putting pen to paper and figuring out, just what acres go to which. So exciting times. And let's see if it is. Let's see if we can get some excitement in that yellow pea market. So thanks so much.
All right, Lyndsey.
Okay. Big thank you to Chuck Penner for being so generous with his time. We really appreciate his insight here on the show. Okay. It is time to take a quick break, and then we are going to hop to Agritechnica, and we're going to hear from Shaun Haney and Bern Tobin. They're sharing some thoughts from the show today. So we'll be back with more right after this.
What were the issues in your fields this year? Did you do a soil sample? What is your soil sample telling you about some of the nutrient issues that you might be having going into next year? What herbicides did you use? What residues you might be concerned about? What weed issues did you have? What crop residues did you have? How well do you know your fields?
Get the answers to all the questions you have about your pulse crop at the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com.
Proven Seed is at home in your soil. With the widest seed portfolio in Western Canada, our seed is developed and tested on and for your local acres. Our hybrids and varieties are tested by hundreds of growers, so we know how our seed will perform in your local conditions. Better returns start with seed that belongs where it's planted, and this seed belongs here. Secure your seed today at your local Nutrien Ag Solutions or visit provenseed.ca to learn more.
Have you heard of Vantage Ag? They're a manufacturer and distributor of liquid fertilizers, and they want to work with you. They want to learn more about you and your goals and build a relationship centered around high-value products and a customized approach. For more information on Vantage Ag, call Paul Sinkovich at 778-919-3370 or visit vantage.ag to get started today.
Well, as promised here on RealAg Radio, we hop now to Germany to hear from Tobin and Shaun Haney with a report from the final day that the team is there anyway. The show continues for a couple days yet. So we'll get to that report from them, and then stick around. I'm going to hop back in here and introduce the next clip. This is one that the video is up on YouTube. It's also on RealAgriculture.com, but it's about the CLAAS Connect platform, and this is really that cross-connectivity between equipment, and you'll hear that it's not necessarily only for CLAAS equipment. You can run other pieces of equipment on it. But there's a really interesting part to this, I think, and that's the movement from taking some of the decision making away from individual operators and having more of a farm manager input that sort of sets up these pieces of equipment for success. So stick around for that. So we'll hear from Shaun and Bernd first, and then we'll hop to the clip from CLAAS, also of course from Agritechnica.
Shaun, Haney, and Bernd Tobin here with Real Agriculture. We're at Agritechnica 2023, brought to you by Optimum Glide, a new canola trait technology from Corteva AgriScience. And, of course, we're here, actually in the Bednar booth.
Bednar, yep. Yeah, we just finished 2 interviews with Jan Bednar. And our final interviews, 70 or 71, right?
I think we're at 70. Which is, I think, an all-time record. Yes, I don't think we have ever come home... And no one's going to dispute that and go back and check, so we'll just say brand new record.
I've done 32 interviews, and this is the first time I've been interviewed.
That's good, because I'm glad you didn't go into some of these booths and say, hey, do you want to interview me about your product?
Well, you could try. Yeah.
In some cases, you might know more about some of the products than the people we've interviewed. We have had honestly a great time. Really big shout out and thank you again to everybody at Corteva AgriScience for once again sponsoring our coverage of this event. It has not happened for 4 years. This is an event that does take place every 2. Of course, the pandemic interrupted what's happened here, and the attendance burn has truly been outstanding.
Amazing. 2,800 exhibitors, probably be 400,000 plus for the whole show. Earlier days were kind of slow, more exhibitor focused. The doors burst wide open on Monday. Ryan and I were at the New Holland booth where the new CR11 combine was, and it was belly to belly, wall to wall. I have never seen a crowd like it at a show in my life, and we were wondering what the hang was happening. But everybody burst through the door going to see the new combine. I guess that was the big reveal of the whole show. I mean, from an innovation perspective, not the biggest things, but that was the big curtain drop.
Yeah, and I had warned you that this show was busy, and I wasn't sure if you believed me. Do you believe me now?
I believe you now. Big crowd. I mean, and Riley can tell you the same thing. I mean, just an incredible push, but so big. I mean, like we're on a university campus basically, going from building to building, and you can spread the people around. But when the farm audience arrives here during the week, it is a crush at points.
Yeah, there's a lot of options if you're looking to plant a seed, looking to move soil, looking to spray a weed, looking for the latest in drone technology and sensors, big and small. It is all shapes and sizes at this show. It is really cool.
I mean, we went to Nextat. I did an interview with Luther Fliss, so look for that. But an amazing, a power core that pulls every implement, right? From cultivation to planting and fertilization and harvest and the combine. So really amazing. Coming to Canada for the first time next year. Look for that report. And Ryan and I just were over at Kubota, and we looked at automated drones for harvesting fruit. A fleet of 8 will fly around the orchard with arms on them extending and with suction cups and grab the fruit, bring it back, lay it in the bin, replaces the labor, and softly handles the fruit for quality. Amazing.
That is pretty cool. And, we just stopped at Agritop, okay? And Agritop has an entirely closed chemical handling system where basically you don't even have to, you have no contact whatsoever. It pierces the membrane on the jug. It's very, very cool stuff. Honestly, with 70 videos, there's too many to mention here, but we definitely have covered the full gamut, and really looking forward to getting home where the real work begins and putting all the videos together. So, a good time to do a bit of a staff review. How was it working with intern Rylan?
Rylan's amazing. I'm going to say 19 years old, You got her out of school on her university midterm break, dragged her halfway across the world. She's been running with me for 4 days, and I couldn't have done it without her.
Yeah, she said she had a great time with you too. So awesome stuff. Well, once again, big thanks to Corteva AgriScience and the new canola trait Optimum Gly for sponsoring our coverage. Please go to RealAgriculture.com for all the videos and opinion columns from the show here. We identify a lot of the trends and things that we saw, as well as our YouTube channel. That New Holland video that Bern and Ryland shot, already, I believe, over 75,000 views in like 3 days. So please check that out of the new CR11 Combine. On behalf of everybody at Real Agriculture, this is the Real Ag team signing off from Agritechnica.
Right on. Okay, it's time for our next clip. This is Thijs Verploegen. I hope I'm saying that correctly, with CLAAS and CLAAS Connect. Let's listen in.
Shaun Haney here with Real Agriculture. We're at Agritechnica 2023 in Hanover, Germany, brought to you by Optimum Gly and Corteva AgriScience. And we're in the CLAAS booth, and we're going to learn all about CLAAS Connect, and we're with my friend Thijs. Thijs, how's it going?
Really well, thank you.
Okay, let's talk about CLAAS Connect, because we've learned in some previous videos about Autonomy Connect and the Smart Implement, the AAA, I believe it's called,
correct.
And all of that's working together. Now, we're going to talk about CLAAS Connect because it kind of brings the whole platform into one place. So what are some of the features?
Yeah, exactly that. So you have the onboard world and you have a strong offboard world as well. I think one of the core features it all starts with is your connected machine. So really having every specific document, right? So it's in there automatically, having the manual, having service information, having the option to contact your dealer, which is, I say, the basics. And then if you go along with the product, I think the beauty is you can go all the way, right? So you can do more with telemetry data, and you can go all the way up to prescription maps, automatic documentation, and ref line planning, as we will show in a minute. Yeah.
Now, to use CLAAS Connect, does all of your equipment need to be from the CLAAS ecosystem, or can I don't know why you would have another branded tractor, but if you happen to have another branded tractor, does it work with CLAAS Connect?
Yeah, sure, it does. So unfortunately, we know there are other brands out there, but fleets are multicolored, right? So fleets are multicolored, and our solution is multicolored as well. So we started this with Data Connect and telematics, so you're able to import, or let's say connect your John Deere or CNH equipment. You can do so as well. And I think it already starts for people who have a non-connected machine, right? So already a liner or stuff like this, it really brings benefits by having service information in there. But I can show you in a minute how this looks like.
Let's get into the screen here and rip us through it and show us what it can do.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we start here. What we would like you to show is that we have different journeys as a customer, which starts from your very first baby steps with the CLAAS ID all the way to the let's say geodata, prescription mapping, and let's say the precision ag stuff, really. So I think one of a few highlights that I really like is getting most out of your machine, right? So we know at CLAAS we have high-performing machines, but your machine is only as good as your driver, actually. So what we then do is, well, how does this look like in an off-board world? So we, of course, have our machines. They're connected at X-Factory, so for 5 years they are connected and are in here automatically, as I told. And you can see small features head-on. So this is, I think, a great thing. Work progress, which really helps contractors, farmers alike, not telling where the machine is, but how long is it still running on the field. One machine and even multiple machines. And this is a great feature directly benefiting our customers having a connected machine.
So for the farm manager, they're getting like fuel usage and that kind of information from the tractor?
Right, they can. And I think that in itself is only describing, and what you can do with this tool as well is optimizing. So we have different. So you mentioned it. So you can have an overview. What is happening with my, let's say my working hours? How much is effective and how much is potential? So how much can I improve? And also comparing machines and comparing drivers. It's possible, right?
Sort of crack the whip a little bit. Hey, come on, what's going on? Look at the downtime. What have you been doing over there?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that it's always, let's say, or not always, but it can be put negative, but in a positive way. We also see the examples that they say, well, guys, let's improve, and I'll throw you a real good Christmas party if you can reduce fuel consumption by so much %. So this 5,000 euros we save, we'll do a good party from half of it. Okay.
Heineken for everybody.
Really.
Okay, what are some of the other things it does?
Well, I mentioned, I think core use cases. So really these telemetry work process, so really knowing the status and knowing what has been happening on the field, a real first benefit. I would say automatic documentation. So if users provide field boundaries to us, we we allow them to drive, and then automatically the thing creates a work entry, right? So no starting and stopping of tasks, no communicating around. It's peace of mind. They just go to their fields and automatically it will appear here. So that's automatic documentation. Works for tractors, works for combines, and for a mixed fleet actually as well. The second benefit. The third benefit I would like to show you. I'm now going through this one. This is the task file transfer. So this is also a great feature. So when you have your machine and you have complex field forms and inexperienced drivers, which of course labor is an issue in Europe as well, and doing this effectively, so planning your route. So this is one of the core features, ref line planning. So people just have their fields in there and then can set up a route, which is automatically proposes. You can tailor it a bit here and there, but it's a real benefit because this is then wirely transferred to your machine, ultimately helping a driver to do less clicks in the field, right?
Yeah. So the driver doesn't have to be necessarily the person that's inputting this. This could be the farm manager that's not even in the machine.
Yeah, I think one of the insights we got from the market is that compatibility is a real issue and driver skill, or let's say labor. And this really puts a lot of stress from the driver to the farm manager. He can prescribe more, and then if you go along this thread, you will actually go to an autonomous machine, right? Yeah. So if you do this in an ultimate way, you won't need a driver anymore. And this is going along the same line.
Okay, so when I'm using CLAAS Connect, am I on my tablet or am I on my computer? How am I interfacing with the program?
Yeah, so whichever fits best. So we can do, I think for, let's say, these yield maps and geodata, a portal is more appropriate, but if you do live monitoring, let's say the work progress, an app is much more suitable. So we have an app which can be, it's actually multi-device.
And is it a subscription model to use it, or what's that? What does that look like?
Right, it's a subscription. So it starts with a connected machine. Every connected machine gets Connect, so that's in there for free. If you want to do some of the features like automatic documentation or yield prescription mapping, we have annual subscription licenses, which go for your farm, not your machine.
Yeah. So when you're talking to farmers at a show like this from virtually all over the world, when we talk about this kind of connectivity, what's the reaction? You mentioned the labor shortage. That's something that farmers are really dealing with.
Well, actually, I think a lot of people know that stuff like this exists, and they tend to say, "Well, we've done that, we tried it. It's complex, And I think for the first time, so from a product positioning, we really said we combine these things with your CLAAS ID. You're starting, and you stay within this solution. And making it easy and accessible is really one key thing, and we can show it with a few of these examples, and people go, oh, okay, well that simply actually works in my everyday, because I think it's the small things that really block adoption, right? So friction. There's a lot of friction in tools today. Yeah. I think what we tried here is to reduce friction, stick to a few key features, like I mentioned, so prescription mapping, ref line planning, automatic documentation, and telemetry. And that does the job. And then you get local partners. So that from a product positioning, a different beast, right? Previously we said, well, we do it all the way up till nutrient planning, and now we say, well, we'll stick to our guns. It's a machine-centric farm management solution, and we have local partners in the markets that can help you get the job done, let's say, from start to finish. Yeah.
Thijs, thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of Agritechnica.
Thank you. You too.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with our product spotlight of the day from Farming Smarter.
CDC Endure is a new oat line from Alliance Seed. High yielding with excellent disease resistance and the quality end users ask for, all in one great oat variety. CDC Endure provides the high beta-glucan levels to make heart-healthy products like breakfast cereals. For more information on CDC Endure oats, as well as any other products from Alliance Seed, check out allianceseed.com or visit any Alliance Seed authorized retailers.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from realagriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and joining me on the line for today's Product Spotlight, it's Jamie Puchinger. I hope I got it right. Assistant Manager with Farming Smarter. How are you today, Jamie?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Okay, so this is, of course, we are heading into the thick of conference season. Coming up, December 13th, is the Global Crop Production Conference. Where is this happening? Why should everybody be going? Tell me all about it.
Fabulous. It is an online virtual conference, and we're bringing in speakers from around the world because it's more economical that way to do it online. So it'll be an all-day virtual event, and people can tune in from the comfort of their living room if they choose.
Very good coffee at the online events, I shall tell you. Very important. Now, this is global, though, and as you mentioned, I mean, you can bring in speakers from all around the world. So why should we care about what's happening in other countries and other places around the world?
This event allows us to hear different perspectives, learn about challenges and solutions, innovation, and farming systems from different parts of the world. And it's a great opportunity to learn from others' experiences and their knowledge. And a great quote that comes to mind is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. So this is a great way to hear from other people and put their experiences and knowledge into practice and maybe do something a little bit different on your farm.
I absolutely love that quote. That is fantastic. All right. And so for those who are perhaps interested in taking in this day on December 13th, where are your speakers from? What topics will we hear about?
Yeah, so we've got a number of different exciting presenters. Andrew Wirt will be talking about the impact of blackleg in Australia. We've got an agronomist and farmer that's going to give some perspectives on farming in Mongolia. And Anna Keats from Minnesota, she's going to look at cover crops and reduced tillage and how it affects soil water. And we've also got William Wilson. He spoke at a previous Farming Smarter conference and was really well received. He'll be talking about international markets and trade related to the impact from the war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and increased competition. And I also have John Foley provide a New Zealand perspective on science and innovation in agriculture. And the resilient farmer, so Johan is from Zimbabwe, and he has a very compelling story to share, and I hope it'll resonate with everybody.
Okay, so we've got Mongolia, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, the U.S., here at home. Like, that is an impressive globe-trotting event. Of these topics, you did say some of them, are definitely ones that were well received in the past and lots to talk about again going forward. Which speakers and which topics are you most looking forward to for you?
I think the presentation with international markets and trade is going to be super relevant to folks, and obviously it applies no matter where you are in the world to know what's happening in the world in that space. And then the perspective on science and innovation in agriculture, to me, just John is going to, I think, give a really great presentation, so I'm super excited about that one. And I've had a number of conversations with Johan from Zimbabwe, and I think everyone's really going to enjoy him as a person and hopefully resonate with his story and the challenges that he's overcome and sort of his outlook on life in general, and hopefully it is a great message for everybody.
All right, everybody start getting your questions lined up, because that's certainly a really key part of any really great conference is having those discussions. Even if it is online, you can still ask all sorts of great ones. All right, so for those who are interested in the Global Crop Production Conference happening online December 13th, where can they go for more information?
Yeah, sign up and register online, or the rest of the agenda is on farmingsmarter.com.
All right, so farmingsmarter.com. You heard it here, everybody. All right, Jamie, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Thanks much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
All right, we'll be back with more Real Ag Radio right after this.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
What's next for your fields? At Pioneer, delivering industry-leading genetics drives everything we do. From the scientists in the lab to our local teams with boots on the ground, we are determined to get there first. Developing top-performing products, proven in more growing conditions than ever before. Pioneer. What's next happens here. Visit pioneer.com/Canada to learn more.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Wednesday, November 15th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Grow Canada. The world needs more of what Canada grows. Join agriculture industry leaders from across the country at Grow Canada in Calgary from November 28th to 30th. Visit growcanadaconference.ca to register now. All right, everybody, I am super pleased to launch this video series. So while the team is in Germany having a great time, I get to do something that I'm super excited about, and that is introduce the Farming Forward series. So this is a new video series. It's going to, we're going to have a new episode every 2 weeks rolling out all throughout the winter and to the spring. And this is a video series that focuses on 3 main topics, and that's cover cropping, nitrogen management, and advanced grazing. And this video series, the team worked so hard on this all summer. We've been doing this behind the scenes. We've been traveling from one end to the other, all the way. We were in PEI, BC, Alberta, all over the place. And we've collected this video series with the Farmers for Climate Solutions and their support. And we are just so pleased to roll it out. And I didn't get to choose the first video, but I am so pleased that this is how we're kicking off this series. So you're going to hear in a moment from Steve Kenyon. He's with Greener Pastures Ranching out of Busby, Alberta. And if anyone knows Steve, you know that he is incredibly passionate about grazing, and not just grazing, but building soil and building soil carbon, organic matter, and doing it through what he calls advanced grazing and what some people might call managed grazing. But he really breaks down how he's managing the grass to grow the soil. And there are some people that really focus on the cattle. There's some people that really focus on the grass. And he's going to explain how he works it all together under these principles of advanced grazing.
Hi, I'm Steve Kenyon. I'm from Greener Pastures Ranching. I run a custom grazing operation near Busby, Alberta. And basically we run other people's cattle on other people's land. We lease all of our land as well. So.
Very, very passionate about grazing, obviously.
Yes.
And in terms of... and the idea of carbon sequestration. So talk about what you're doing here.
Okay, so yeah, that's what we try and do. We do an advanced grazing system here. We rotate cattle around. I use the cattle as a tool to manage the forage. And that's kind of a mindset shift that a lot of people don't have, or that maybe a lot of people need to get past. The cattle aren't here to manage the cattle, right? I'm using them as a tool to manage the grass, which in there helps me grow soil. So carbon is a really big deal right now. Society is all about carbon, right? We've got carbon tax, we've got carbon credits, we've got carbon this and that. And our society right now is trying to get to carbon neutral. And I'm a little bit frustrated because they only look at one side of the equation. Okay, to be carbon neutral, you need to sequester as much carbon to offset what we emit. Okay, to be carbon neutral, it's a math equation. It's very simple. But the whole world right now is looking at reducing emissions. Okay, they're only looking at one side of the equation. Right? We have the ability in agriculture to sequester carbon. Right? There's very few industries on the planet that have that ability. Okay, an airline company that's bragging about being carbon neutral by 2030 or 2050 or whenever they are. Right? They're never going to get there. They have no way of sequestering carbon. Right? All they can do is reduce their emissions, which that's great. They're doing that. Even in agriculture, we're trying to measure how we can reduce emissions, right, in single points, and then we can brag about it, and then we can advertise it, and then we can market it, okay? I'm not into marketing, right? I want to actually become carbon neutral or go beyond. We had a study here that on our ranch here, we were way beyond carbon neutral. I think we were 94% sequestration and 6% emissions, right? I mean, we're way beyond carbon neutral. So what we're doing with this is using the plants to sequester carbon. It's not that complicated of a system. Photosynthesis, right? The plants take sunlight energy, pull carbon out of the air to build the plant, for the plant to grow. In that, it translocates that carbon down into the root systems, and then the roots push out carbon in the form of glucose out into the soil. And the idea of that is to actually feed the soil biology. Right? So that's a very powerful tool. It's called exudate or exudation. And we're pushing that out, and we're adding carbon to whatever the base is. So for years, academia has told us, and that's what they taught me when I went to college, that it takes 100 years to grow an inch of topsoil. Okay? What they're thinking of, or their frame of mind in that, is leaving residue on top, that residue decomposing and breaking down and forming thatch layer and forming soil on top of the ground. That's very slow because most of that carbon volatilizes off back into the air, right? Most of it cycles above ground. If we look at using exudation as our way of growing soil, we're pushing that root down into the ground and pushing carbon out into the base, we can grow soil a lot faster. Okay, as an example here, a few years ago, the University of Alberta came out and did a study on our place. And we had, long story short, we ended up taking, in 15 years, we took, as compared to the field beside it, was at 5.2% soil organic carbon. We took ours up to 11%, right, in 15 years. And in that time, we also grew 10.8 inches of topsoil, right? We've got the soil data to show that. So that's a lot faster than 100 years, right? And we're growing that because then, the comparison field beside it had basically no topsoil. It was the same color all the way down. Okay, so we can do that. This field here we've had for about 20 years, and we're going to show you the soil profile and how we've built that up. Because we don't start with any topsoil. This is a gray wooded soil. Basically, this used to be all trees. And when you wipe out the trees, you basically start with no topsoil. So even when we took this over, it was a pasture, but there was hardly anything growing. It was severely overgrazed and virtually no topsoil here. There was just some grass growing. So over the last 20 years, we've grown a lot of topsoil. We've got on average probably somewhere between 8 and 12 inches of topsoil on here now. And it's not that we're growing above ground. What we're doing is converting the base. So we've got a very clay base. So we've been adding carbon into that clay for 20 years. And now we've got, 8 to 12 inches of black topsoil. And down the road, about 10, 15 miles, is where the black soil zone starts. That's where all the grain land is, right? And I've got videos and pictures of land down there that's all brown and gray now because they've depleted all that carbon out of the topsoil.
So, Steve, what are you doing that is kind of flipping what academia has been saying? You're flipping it on its head, kind of. What does that actually look like in practicality?
Yeah, we are focusing on photosynthesis. Really. There's a term called albedo. It is the difference between the amount of light that comes down versus what's reflected. Okay, so if the sunlight comes down and hits green growing plant material like you see here, it's being absorbed and we're going to get more carbon, right? We're gonna sequester carbon. If it hits bare soil or overgrazed or dirt, right, a cultivated field, it gets reflected back. And we never get the carbon that way. So with our advanced grazing system, we focus on 5 grazing principles. We've got graze period, rest period, animal impact, stock density, and soil armor. Okay, we focus on those principles, especially the graze period, rest period. We can keep these plants in a vegetative state for most of the summer. Right from, as soon as it's warm enough in the spring, we're collecting sunlight. Throughout the season, we don't ever let them get mature. Right, there's still nice green plants out here that are absorbing, taking in carbon. Absorbing sunlight. And then even late in the fall, we've still got vegetative plants, right? So a typical lifespan, if we just let this grow, we'd have some very small plants in the spring, collect a little bit of sunlight, we'd get this vegetative plant, and then it would go to seed. Once it goes to seed, we're no longer collecting very much sunlight because that plant is mature and now it's going to drop the seeds off, it's done. So we want to keep knocking that plant down. Picture a hayfield. right? It grows in the spring, you knock it down, you get a nice second growth. That's what we're trying to do with our pastures. We manage those concepts. Now, if you're in a different area, you might manage them a little differently, right? If you're in a really dry area, you might only be able to graze them once. If you're in a medium like us, we're in a moderate rainfall area, we might get two rotations, 2 grazings. In a really wet environment, you might get 5. Okay.
At 50,000 feet, the principles cover a wide geography. It's what you do at 10,000 feet that could be different between geographies.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the concepts remain the same, but you adapt the concepts to your environment.
No different than growing wheat in Kansas could be a little bit different than some of the practices you engage if you're growing wheat in, say, Manitoba.
You bet. You look at it as what kind of engine do you have, right? Do you have a V8? Well, it does a lot better because it's in a it's a lot more powerful. If you've got a little 4-cylinder, right, it's not going to do as much. You got to manage it a little differently. So the drier area, that water, that's a big part. And I'm in a moderate area, right? We've had two years of severe drought, and then this spring was very, very dry. We just got a bunch of rain, so everybody's like cheering right now. We still have really good grass, even though we've been through 2.5 years of drought, because we manage for that water cycle. Leaving residue on top, that's super important for absorbing moisture and holding on to it. So also building that carbon layer, right? Building that AH horizon. The deeper it is, the bigger it is, the more water we hold, and that's what powers the engine.
I don't know about you, but it's that time of year where I am just so pleased to hear those birds chirping along in the background. Go check out the video. There's some really great visuals of what Steve's fields look like, what the cattle look like, some really great drone shots and that sort of stuff. So head on over to our YouTube channel. You can see the video there. There's going to be a whole bunch more, of course, over the course of the winter. So stick around. You can subscribe to that playlist if you want. But yeah, this idea of advanced grazing, everyone knows, of course, that we have sheep, we are grazers, we do solar grazing, which is different, but we use some of the same principles. But I really appreciate how Steve sort of discusses how, moving that outside, that energy through the plant into the roots and keeping that plant in that process and not letting it go to seed, how that really can help to build soil. And that, of course, tweaks my brain onto, yes, grazing management, but also what we're doing with our cover crops and all those sorts of things. So to me, it just a really great example of how we can think about how we manage our livestock across the ground. And as mentioned in there, he does talk about the principles of advanced grazing. And I promise you, there will be an upcoming episode where he digs into those a little bit deeper. So thank you so much for joining me on today's show. I know it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We've been in Germany, we've been out to Alberta, we had Chuck Penner joining us from Winnipeg, and I'm here in Ontario listening to the corn getting harvested off the field next door. It is nice to hear that sound, let me tell you, because it has been not a great corn harvest season, I'll tell you. But the soybeans are off, so that's something. Feedback, please. Thank you so much for everyone who has reached out. I got some great feedback on the Bill C-234, the Senate shenanigans, so I appreciate that. Love to hear your feedback, and positive, negative, it's all good. Tell me what you want to hear. I, of course, am here for the rest of the week, but hey, even if I don't cover it, someone else on the team can too, or when Shaun gets back next week. So we really do appreciate you following along. Give us a call, 855-776-6147. Or, of course, you can zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or find us across social media at RealAgriculture. Alrighty, it is the Farmer Rapid Fire tomorrow, don't forget. And so, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern, right here on Rural Radio, Channel 147. Cheers, everybody.